TIE fighters and TIE variants are really the one area of LEGO Star Wars where I think LEGO has been most consistent, well, up until recently, and over the past 25 years, LEGO has made countless different wonky and unique TIE fighters and TIE variants, and a lot of them are fan favorites, so today I want to go ahead and rank every single one of them. I have a total of 23 separate ships to get through, and starting off at the 23rd spot, I have the most recent TIE fighter LEGO has made, that being the TIE Fighter in 75393 TIE Fighter and X-Wing mashup, and if you watched my review on this set, you know I do not like this thing at all. A lot of you guys probably disagree with me. I've seen some people say this is the most accurate TIE fighter LEGO has made. I couldn't care less if it's accurate or not. I just think it's ugly compared to the rest. Actually, I take that back. I do care about accuracy, but this thing is just so aesthetically unpleasing. The proportions around the cockpit are just off and flat out ugly. On top, there's this awful looking sticker with a bunch of gaps in it when there should just be a printed hatch piece. And not to mention, there's these green spring-loaded shooters that stick right out the side. And I know the reason they're there is because of the X-Wing when you're supposed to use the feature where the wings can switch and everything, but when you don't have the wing switch and you just have the TIE fighter itself, the spring-loaded shooters make it look so ugly. And not to mention, the set as a whole with the X-Wing is very overpriced. Anyways though, next up I have a set that most of you guys have probably forgotten about or never even heard of before, that being 75242 Black Ace TIE Interceptor. Now, if you've never seen this thing before, it's from the Resistance show that came out in 2019 that I don't really think that many people watched, and to be honest, I can't really hold anything against LEGO for this set. I think they did their best job at recreating the ship from the show. I just think the ship itself is pretty ugly looking, and it just doesn't really fit in with the other TIE variants. Although on the bright side, the set itself does include that really cool TIE pilot helmet with the skull printed on the front. Anyways though, continuing on to the 21st spot, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for having this set so low on the list, but it's actually 75300 Imperial TIE Fighter from 2021. And disagree with me all you want, I don't really care. I don't like the downsized TIE fighters. This set was the first time LEGO did it, and the second time was with the set I just talked about that I put in last place. And albeit this one definitely does look better than the other one, however, I just don't like the downsizing. The proportions are really off. The cockpit is way too big compared to the wings. I know a lot of people like this set because they claim it's actually minifigure scale compared to the other TIE fighters, and that might be true. I'm not really sure. I think it is a bit smaller than minifigure scale, but the other ones are a bit bigger. Although again, the main thing I don't like about it is just the proportions. The cockpit is way too big relative to the size of the wings, that is. Now making our way to the top 20, at the 20th spot, I have 4479 TIE Bomber from 2003. Now I know this is a very beloved set, and most of you guys are probably thinking, why did I put it so low on the list? And as much as I agree with that, I do personally think it's the weakest sort of OG TIE fighter or TIE variant. And when I say OG, I just mean the old ones that are black and blue. I mean, for the time period, it looked great, don't get me wrong. Although at this point in 2025, it is very outdated, and that's why I just had to keep it towards the back of the list. Again, still a great set, great for its time period, just not holding up in 2025. Anyways though, up next at the 19th and 18th spot. At the 19th spot, I have 7263 TIE Fighter from 2005, and at the 18th spot, I have 7146 TIE Fighter from 2001. And the reason I put these back to back is because they pretty much have the exact same build. There are a few very minor differences, like the 2005 TIE Fighter having an extra piece on the front of the wings that the 2001 version does not have, but other than very small, barely noticeable things like that, they're pretty much the same build, so I put them back to back. Although one cool thing is that the 2001 TIE Fighter actually came with the stand that the 2005 version does not have. But their differences aside, I think for the time period, LEGO did a wonderful job on these. I mean, they represent a TIE Fighter very well. Obviously, they don't hold up today in 2025, but back then, LEGO really did do their best, and it seems like they actually put all their effort into making these as good as they could be. Up next at the 17th spot, I have by far the weirdest TIE variant LEGO has made in a set that kind of has a cult following, that being 7664 TIE Crawler from 2007. And this thing is pretty weird, or unique to say the least, and that's why it's kind of developed a cult following, because LEGO has just never made anything like this since. And if you don't even know what the TIE Crawler is, it's just a Legends vehicle that appeared in a bunch of different Legends material, and I'm pretty sure the first time it appeared was in the 90s in the Dark Empire comics, and then in 2007 LEGO made it a set. It's just really random, really strange, but that's why it has a cult following, and I mean, I'm all for it. I love when LEGO makes random Legends vehicles out of nowhere like this. However, one issue I have with it is that the cockpit is really small compared to the wings, or the treads, I guess. If you look at pictures of it, the tread area is a bit smaller compared to the cockpit, and it just has a bit of a more compact design that I think LEGO didn't really capture in the best way possible here, but it still looks good, and it's still one of the most unique sets ever made. Anyways though, up next at the 16th spot, I have Darth Vader's TIE Fighter from 7150 TIE Fighter and Y-Wing from 1999. And out of all the OG blue and black TIE Fighters LEGO has made, this one is one of the best. I mean, for 1999, the shaping and accuracy on this thing is surprisingly really good. It was the first year of LEGO Star Wars Wars, and obviously it was the 90s, so LEGO wasn't as advanced as they are today, and it's just impressive to me at least on how good of a job they did at their first attempt of making this ship. Although one problem with it, which is kind of a problem that all these older TIE variants had, is that the wings aren't connected very securely, so they do pop off pretty easily, but in terms of just looks, for 1999, again, it's great. Up next at the 15th spot, I have yet another weird one-off Legends TIE Fighter or TIE variant, that being the Droid TIE Fighter from 10131 TIE Fighter Collection from 2004. Now this set as a whole is honestly insane. I'm pretty sure most people know that. You got 4 TIE variations, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, 2 TIE Fighters, and the Droid TIE Fighter, all for only $70. And like I said, the Droid TIE Fighter is what's making the 15th placement. And don't get me wrong, this thing is weird, but I personally think it looks awesome. It's got one of my favorite TIE variation designs with the angled sort of rectangular wings, and for the time period, LEGO did a great job at capturing it, especially the angled wings. It just looks so cool to me. Up next at the 14th spot, I have the first sort of modernized TIE Fighter that LEGO made, that being 9492 TIE Fighter from 2012. And this is a great set, don't get me wrong, like I said, it's the first sort of modernized version of a TIE Fighter, meaning it's actually the correct colors, or closer to the correct colors. Although one annoyance I have with it is that I don't like the cockpit piece or windshield piece they used. It's this weird dome shape that sticks out too far and kind of distorts the shape of the whole cockpit. This was before they started using the flat ones that they started using throughout the mid-2010s, and I've just personally always thought it looks really off. Although other than that, for 2012, LEGO did a pretty solid job on it, and like I said, it was the first one to take a step in this sort of modernized direction from the old ones. Up next at the 13th spot, I have another Legends set, well, Legends at the time of its release, that being 8087 TIE Defender from 2010. This is another one of those niche TIE fighters that has a bit of a cult following, and I mean, it's pretty obvious why. The TIE Defender is one of the coolest TIE variants, and for 2010, I think LEGO did a decent job on it. I honestly think I might have been a bit gracious by putting it at the 13th spot. It could have been at the 14th or 15th, but I mean, it just looks really cool, so I kind of had to, but there are some problems with it. One, it is fairly fragile, and also it has a rotating cockpit feature. However, when you open the cockpit up, it flips upside down. It's definitely a bit of a nitpick, but after a while, it does get pretty annoying. So again, even for 2010, I wouldn't say this set is perfect, but after all, it's a TIE Defender, and it looks really cool, so I had to give it a decent placement. Anyways though, up next at the number 12th spot, I have 8017 Darth Vader's TIE Fighter from 2009. As you can obviously tell, at the time of its release, it was a significant upgrade from the older ones that came out in 1999, and I mean, other than that, I honestly don't have a whole lot to say about it. It was a great model for the year and has since become a pretty iconic set, but obviously it's a bit outdated in 2025. Up next at the number 11 spot, I'm not gonna lie, I might have been kind of biased by putting this one so high, but I actually have 6206 TIE Interceptor from 2006. Out of all the classic OG blue and black TIE fighters and TIE variants, I think this one's the best. Again, like the others, it's not perfect, the wings are still very wobbly and kind of fragile, but I mean, come on, it is a TIE Interceptor, it's one of the coolest TIE variants, and like I mentioned earlier, I actually like the blue and black color scheme, and I think it complements the aggressive look of a TIE Interceptor very, very well. Anyways though, not making our way into the top 10, at the number 10 spot, I actually have a sequel set, that being 75272 Sith TIE Fighter from 2020, and I'm not gonna lie, I honestly kind of forgot about this set until I started making this list, and despite this being from the sequels, specifically episode 9, I mean, you can't lie, this thing looks really cool. I remember when it came out, people were calling it the Dorito TIE Fighter for obvious reasons. I mean, it just has an aggressive look, and the red and black looks great, although one of the downsides when it initially came out was its price point. It has 470 pieces and retailed for $80 US in 2020, which upset a lot of people and honestly kind of led to this set just going under the radar, so much so that on the aftermarket, the price of this thing sealed has actually dropped. You can find this thing for around $60 now new in box, which is extremely rare for LEGO Star Wars sets. They usually never drop in value and only go up, but price and value aside, the design of the ship and the design of the set look really cool. Now moving on to the number 9 spot, I actually have another sequel set, and one that's actually kind of become a fan favorite, that being 75179 Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter from 2017. And I mean, for very obvious reasons, this thing is pretty epic looking. The design of the ship is really just a larger TIE Interceptor. However, the larger and longer wings just make it look twice as aggressive, and also it is the biggest TIE variant LEGO has made and probably will make since they're all downsized now in terms of size and actual piece count. Although I'm not gonna lie, I have a small nitpick with this set, well really the ship. I don't like the design of the cockpit where it's kind of flat and wide, it just looks strange to me for a TIE Fighter, but other than that, this thing is pretty crazy. Anyways though, up next at the number 8 spot, I actually have yet another sequel set, except it's actually not from one of the movies. It's 75240 Major Von Reg's TIE Fighter from 2019. This is another set from the Resistance TV show that I never watched, but despite its source material, this ship just looks crazy. I mean, as you can tell, it's literally just a red and black TIE Interceptor, but I mean, I don't know what else to say other than the fact that it just looks so good. The red and black complements the ship very well, and on top of that, we rarely get colorful Star Wars sets. They're always usually gray or black or white, so having a literal red TIE Interceptor is awesome. Now making our way to the number 7 spot, I have 75082 TIE Advanced Prototype from 2015, and I know that most people are probably going to think I ranked this set too high, but honestly, I really like it. It's got a unique design to me. I do think they could have used a different technique to make the sort of curvature on the wings to make it a bit more accurate, but overall the ship itself looks cool, and the set came with the Inquisitor, which everyone loves. Anyways though, up next at the number 6 spot, I actually have one of my favorite sets of all time, that being 75101 First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter from 2015. And I absolutely love this set. It's very nostalgic to me because it was one of the first sets I got on Force Friday when the initial Force Awakens wave released back in 2015, and there was just so much hype surrounding the sets and the movie, so it kind of became a memorable moment for me. But not only is this thing nostalgic for me, the ship itself just looks awesome. It's got this faint red stripe on the left side of the cockpit, which I think LEGO did a great job at designing, and honestly, I just like the design of the First Order TIE Fighters in general, specifically the colorway. The light gray with the black trim just looks really nice, and it pops as a LEGO set. But now making our way to the top 5, at the number 5 spot, I have a fan favorite that just released kind of recently, that being 75347 TIE Bomber from 2023. The hype around this set when it initially released was insane because it was the first TIE Bomber we had gotten in 20 years since the first one that I talked about earlier in the video, and LEGO blew it out of the water. They made a very good modernized TIE Bomber. The proportions and shaping are perfect, it looks great, although one thing that does annoy me is that you can't actually see into the cockpit. The cockpit piece itself is transparent, but there's just bricks behind it, so you can't see all the way in, which is yet another con of these downsized TIE variants. But other than that, it looks great, and it definitely lived up to the hype at the time. Anyways though, now making our way to the number 4 spot, from here on out, these next 4 TIE variants are pretty much perfect. You could really put these in any order. It kind of just comes down to personal preference, but at the number 4 spot, I have the TIE Interceptor and 75348 Mandalorian Fang Fighter versus TIE Interceptor. Like the TIE Bomber, this was a very long-awaited remake. This came out in 2023, and the last play-scale TIE Interceptor we got was in 2006, and like the TIE Bomber, it too lived up to the hype. I mean, the build is gorgeous, it's as accurate as it could be, and again, it lived up to the hype of being the first TIE Interceptor in 17 years. Up next at the number 3 spot, I have a fan favorite, that being Darth Vader's TIE Advance from 75150 Vader's TIE Advance versus A-Wing Starfighter. And I mean, gosh, this thing is incredible. I honestly don't think LEGO will ever make a better playscale TIE Advance than this one right here, and honestly, I'm gonna go so far to say it was kind of ahead of its time. It's really got that detailed, compact design that most of the recent LEGO Star Wars sets in the 2020s have been having lately, and this came out in 2016. Now making our way to the number 2 spot, I'm not gonna lie, I almost put this set at number 1. Really, the number 1 and 2 spots are very interchangeable because they're both just such good sets, but at the number 2 spot, I have 75154 TIE Striker from 2016. This thing is absolutely incredible. I actually did a review on this a while back, and I gave the set a 10 out of 10. It's one of the only sets I've given a 10 out of 10 rating. It's got a very aggressive and interesting looking design and has a cool wing functionality where you can fold the wings up and down, and also the minifigure lineup is awesome, especially with that Shore Trooper. The build and just the set as a whole is really one for the books, and honestly, I would say I'd love to see LEGO remake this thing and recognize Rogue One again, but honestly, like the Darth Vader's TIE Advance that I just talked about, if LEGO does ever decide to remake this, I don't think it'll be near as good as this one. And then that just leaves the number 1 spot left, and of course I have 75211 Imperial TIE Fighter from 2018. Like I said, in my head at least, this set is really interchangeable for the number 1 spot with the TIE Striker I just talked about. However, the reason I decided to put it at number 1 is just because it's the perfect TIE Fighter in my head. It just kind of makes sense to have the original TIE variant at the number 1 spot, and honestly, like the TIE Striker, I would also consider this to be a 10 out of 10 set. The build is perfect, the proportions are all there, the cockpit is actually proportionally sized to the wings, it doesn't look out of shape or wonky, and then obviously not to mention the minifigure lineup, which is one of the reasons this set is so popular, because of that Mint Bond Trooper, but you also have the Imperial version of Han Solo. Now I will admit, it does feel kind of off that the best TIE Fighter LEGO has made came from Solo and has Solo minifigures, and then it come from one of the original trilogy movies and have normal figures like a Stormtrooper and whatnot, but in the end that doesn't matter all too much because again, the TIE Fighter build is perfect. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think about my list down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see on the screen right now.